New Boston, Texas, is a small town of about 4,000 people in the far northeast corner of the state, close to the Arkansas and Oklahoma borders. It is the kind of place where people know their neighbors, where a young mother can walk to a friend's house without a second thought, where the idea that something truly evil could happen in a living room on an ordinary Friday morning seems almost impossible. On October 9, 2020, something truly evil happened in a living room on an ordinary Friday morning. Reagan Simmons-Hancock was 21 years old. She was married. She had a 3-year-old daughter. She was 36 weeks pregnant with her second child, a little girl she and her husband had already named Braxlynn Sage. She was less than a month from holding her daughter for the first time. That morning, a woman Reagan knew, a woman she had welcomed into her life, defended when others expressed doubts about her, and trusted enough to let into her home, beat her to death, stabbed her more than 100 times, and cut her unborn baby from her womb. Reagan's 3-year-old daughter was in the house. She was left unharmed. The woman who did this was Taylor Parker. She was 27 years old. She had been lying to the people around her for 10 months. And she had been planning this, in some form, for longer than that. This is one of the most disturbing true crime cases in recent American history. And it begins, as so many of the worst stories do, with a lie. Taylor Rene Parker was born on December 8, 1992, in Titus County, Texas. By her late teens, she had already become a mother. She gave birth to her first child at 17. She had a second child, a son, in her early 20s during her first marriage. Then, in 2014, she underwent a tubal ligation. Complications from an ectopic pregnancy followed, and the procedure that resulted, a hysterectomy, left her unable to conceive again. She was in her early 20s. She had no uterus. She would never carry another pregnancy. Her first marriage ended in divorce in 2017. She married a second time in 2018. That marriage also ended in divorce in 2019. By the summer of 2019, Taylor Parker was starting over in a new community in East Texas. She had reinvented herself, telling people she was the heiress to an oil fortune, presenting an image of wealth and stability that had no foundation in reality. She started a photography business as a side project. And at a rodeo, she met a man named Wade Griffin. Wade was a local hog trapper. He was straightforward, earnest, and trusting. He fell for Taylor quickly, and within weeks of their relationship beginning, Taylor told Wade she was pregnant. She was not pregnant. She could not be pregnant. But she told him she was. And then she spent the next 10 months making him believe it. The pregnancy Taylor Parker constructed was not a casual deception. It was a project. She ordered a silicone pregnancy belly prosthetic online, a realistic, wearable fake bump designed to simulate the physical appearance of a growing pregnancy. She wore it consistently, managing Wade's access to her body by telling him she was insecure about her changing shape. He respected her boundaries. He believed her. She purchased forged ultrasound images online. She presented them to Wade and his family as evidence of the growing baby. When questions arose about the authenticity of a lab result, Wade's mother noticed something suspicious about a document. Taylor claimed the lab had sent hundreds of misprints that day and that a new one would arrive shortly. She made a phone call. She came back with a new answer. The moment passed. She told people the baby was a girl. She organized a gender reveal party. Wade's family came. Her own family came. Friends gathered to celebrate a child who did not exist, in a womb that had been removed years earlier. She posed for maternity photographs. She announced the due date. Her browser history, recovered by investigators, told the story of how methodical she had been. Searches for order cheap pregnancy silicone belly. Searches for fake ultrasound. Searches for newborn adoptions. Searches for how to find a birth mother. Searches for video of C-section. She was not panicking. She was planning. By late September 2020, Taylor's invented due date had passed. She told Wade the baby had not yet arrived. She said she would deliver by cesarean section at a hospital in Texas on October 5. A fire at Wade's house changed the story. A bomb threat at the hospital changed it again. Now she said she would deliver on October 9 at a hospital across the state line in Idabel, Oklahoma. October 9, 2020. A date she had chosen. A date that would become the last day of Reagan Simmons-Hancock's life. Reagan Michelle Simmons-Hancock was born on November 14, 1998. She was 21 years old in October 2020. Those who knew her described her consistently as warm, inclusive, and generous, the kind of person who made everyone feel welcome, who gave people the benefit of the doubt, who looked for the best in those around her. She was married to Homer Hancock. They had a 3-year-old daughter together. And in October 2020, Reagan was 36 weeks pregnant with Braxlynn Sage, a name they had already chosen for the daughter who was almost here. Reagan and Taylor had crossed paths in September 2019, when Taylor photographed Reagan's wedding as part of her photography side business. Taylor inserted herself into the celebrations in ways that struck some of Reagan's family as slightly unusual, appearing in wedding selfies, positioning herself as a friend even in a professional context. After the wedding, the two women began to see each other more frequently. When people in the community began to express doubts about Taylor's pregnancy, when rumors circulated that something was wrong with her story, Reagan reportedly defended Taylor to others. She extended the kind of trust and generosity that defined how she moved through the world. She let Taylor into her home. On the morning of October 9, 2020, Taylor Parker arrived at Reagan's house. Reagan's 3-year-old daughter was there. What happened next was documented at trial in detail that the Simmons-Hancock family has had to carry with them every day since. Reagan Simmons-Hancock was beaten with a hammer. She was stabbed more than 100 times. She was strangled. She fought. The evidence at the scene showed she fought hard, and for a significant period of time. She was 36 weeks pregnant. Her baby was due in less than a month. Taylor Parker performed a crude surgical procedure on Reagan's body. Using a scalpel, she cut open Reagan's abdomen and removed the unborn baby, a procedure she had researched online, watching videos of premature deliveries and cesarean sections in the months leading up to October 9. Reagan's 3-year-old daughter was in the house throughout. She was left unharmed and unattended beside her mother's body. Taylor Parker left with the baby. She drove north toward Oklahoma, the direction of the hospital she had told Wade she would deliver at. She called Wade to tell him the baby had arrived. A Texas state trooper pulled her over near DeKalb for speeding and erratic driving. Parker was covered in blood. She was holding a newborn. She told the trooper she had just given birth on the side of the road. At the hospital in Idabel, Oklahoma, medical staff examined Taylor Parker. They found no signs of recent childbirth. No physical evidence that she had delivered a baby. No uterus, because she had none. DNA testing confirmed what the physical examination had already made clear: the baby was not Taylor's. She was Braxlynn Sage Hancock, the daughter of Reagan and Homer Hancock. Braxlynn did not survive. She was pronounced dead at the hospital. Taylor Parker was arrested the same day. Back in New Boston, Texas, Reagan Simmons-Hancock's body was found at her home. Her 3-year-old daughter was beside her. The investigation that followed built a case as comprehensive as it was devastating. Parker's phone and browser history documented the entire architecture of the fraud: the searches for fake pregnancy products, the forged documents, the research into how to perform a premature cesarean delivery. Investigators could trace the lie from its beginning to its catastrophic end. Wade Griffin was brought in for questioning at the hospital on the day of Reagan's murder. An investigator told him what had happened. "I didn't really have no words for nothing at that point," he said later in the Netflix documentary. "It was unimaginable, what she did." Witnesses came forward to describe the months of red flags that had not been acted on. Wade's mother had noticed the suspicious lab document. A friend named Stephanie had called the women's clinic after her own doubts became too strong to ignore and been told, obliquely, to trust her instincts. A former acquaintance named Mackenzie had told others in the community that Taylor had a hysterectomy and could not be pregnant. The warnings had been there. They had not been enough. Taylor's first ex-husband testified that he had even called Wade anonymously to warn him about the fake pregnancy before the murder occurred, that he had told him Taylor was a compulsive liar who had been unfaithful during their marriage and had treated their son poorly. Wade did not believe it. "In your mind," Wade's mother said at trial, "you think, why are they here if it's not true?" The gender reveal. The maternity shoot. The family celebrations. The complete social architecture of a pregnancy that never existed. Parker had not simply lied. She had built an alternative reality and populated it with people who loved her. Taylor Parker's trial began on September 12, 2022, before a Bowie County jury. It lasted weeks. 142 witnesses testified. The prosecution methodically walked the jury through every layer of the deception: the silicone belly, the forged ultrasounds, the browser searches, the escalating series of lies about delivery dates, and then through the crime scene itself. In closing arguments, Prosecutor Kelly Crisp showed the jury a crime scene photograph of Reagan Simmons-Hancock lying in a pool of blood on her living room floor. She told the jury that Taylor Parker needed to receive the death penalty because she was a danger. She described what had been done to Reagan, slashed more than 100 times, beaten, strangled, and cut open, and asked the jury to weigh that against the life of a 21-year-old woman who had let a photographer into her home. The defense argued that there were layers and shades of grey in Taylor Parker's life, that she had been failed by the people around her who did not intervene when the fake pregnancy became obvious. It challenged the legal definition of kidnapping as applied to an unborn child. The jury deliberated for approximately 1 hour. On October 3, 2022, they returned a verdict of guilty on all counts: capital murder, murder, and kidnapping. The sentencing phase lasted 25 days. 142 witnesses. And on November 9, 2022, the jury sentenced Taylor Rene Parker to death. Standing before the court, Reagan's mother, Jessica Brooks, addressed Taylor Parker directly. "My baby was alive," she said, "still fighting for her babies, when you tore her open and ripped her baby from her stomach." She called Taylor Parker an evil piece of flesh demon. After hearing the victim impact statements, Judge John Tidwell turned to the bailiff and said simply, "Take her to death row."
Taylor Parker is currently incarcerated at the Patrick L. O'Daniel Unit in Gatesville, Texas, the primary detention facility for women on death row in the state. She is 33 years old. She is one of only 7 women on Texas death row. She is the first woman in Texas to receive a death sentence in over 12 years. Her direct appeals have been exhausted. In November 2025, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals reviewed all 25 points of error raised by Parker's attorneys and found none of them convincing. The conviction and death sentence were upheld in full. In May 2026, Taylor Parker's legal team petitioned the United States Supreme Court to review the case. The Supreme Court declined, without comment. No execution date has been set. Death penalty cases in Texas move through habeas corpus review, a separate, lengthy process, before an execution date is scheduled. That process can take years. But the primary legal avenues have closed. She remains the youngest woman on death row in Texas. The Netflix documentary Maternal Instinct, directed by Jessica Dimmock and released on June 12, 2026, deliberately chose not to feature Taylor Parker. Director Dimmock kept the focus on the grief and resilience of the Simmons-Hancock family. The camera stays with the people who lost Reagan and Braxlynn. Parker is given no platform to speak. That decision, the director has said, is itself a statement about whose story actually matters. Reagan Michelle Simmons-Hancock was 21 years old. She had a 3-year-old daughter, a husband, and a baby girl named Braxlynn who was 4 weeks from being born. She was warm, inclusive, and generous to a fault. She gave Taylor Parker the benefit of the doubt when others did not. She let her into her home. She was killed inside that home on a Friday morning in October. Her daughter sat beside her until someone came. Braxlynn Sage Hancock lived for a few hours. She died at a hospital in Oklahoma without ever knowing her mother's name. The case of Taylor Parker forces a question that has no comfortable answer. How do you protect yourself from someone who is not who they say they are, in a community built on the assumption that people are? Reagan Simmons-Hancock did nothing wrong. She extended kindness to someone who had constructed an entire identity around deception. The warnings were there. Friends knew. Family members had doubts. Former partners tried to reach out. None of it was enough. Taylor Parker sits on death row in Gatesville, Texas. The people who loved Reagan Simmons-Hancock are still living with what was taken from them on the morning of October 9, 2020. Reagan deserved to hold her daughter. She deserved everything that was coming to her in the weeks ahead. She deserved to be alive. Subscribe to Quick Crime Vault. Every case in this vault deserves to be told fully. Every victim deserves their name said clearly. We'll see you in the next vault.